Okay, now let's introduce Lean Six Sigma. Now there's 4 topics we're going to discuss in this lesson. The first is, what is Lean Six Sigma? And then what's the difference between a process and a project, which is going to be really important at the start here. And then what are the goals of Lean Six Sigma? There's really 2 primary goals. And we'll discuss the concept of tailoring. Okay, so what is Lean Six Sigma? Lean Six Sigma is just a method for improving our business processes. We're trying to make them better. And in any business and organization, there's going to be lots of processes. Could be things like checking out customers, shipping orders, preparing reports, and handling customer support calls. The list is going to go on them. Could be hiring employees, repairing equipment, paying suppliers, cleaning facilities. At any given business, at any given organization, there's going to be hundreds or thousands of processes. And our goal with Lean Six Sigma is to make them better, to improve them. Now, what's important here at the start is to distinguish between a process and a project. A process is ongoing. We pretty much do it the same way all the time. And a project is temporary. It's going to have a start and a finish. Okay? Examples in our business might be, a process might be to ship orders. It's pretty much done the same way all the time. And a project is going to be temporary. Maybe like building a website. We're not going to build a new website every day. It's going to be rare. We might make updates to it periodically, but we classify that as a project. And we handle these in different ways. So Lean Six Sigma is all about process improvement. And there's the field of project management, where we're trying to run these projects and keep them within constraints of cost, schedule, and scope. Okay, but with Lean Six Sigma, though, we're just trying to improve those processes to make them better. All right, now let's do a quick exercise. A routine oil change, would we classify that as a process or a project? Probably a process. We pretty much do it the same way all the time. How about a custom home? We'd probably classify that as a project. We're not going to do that every day. It's very unique. It's going to have a start and a finish. We classify that as a project. What about a rocket launch? This is probably going to be a project too. There's going to be some very unique things about this. It's going to be irregular, and we're going to manage this launch within constraints of cost, schedule, and scope. Okay, so we've got processes which are ongoing. We pretty much do them the same way. And projects which are temporary initiatives. Now let's talk about brainstorming processes at a ride-sharing company like Uber or Lyft. What might be some processes at one of these companies? Okay, so one process might be to conduct background checks. We pretty much do those the same way. And every time we have a driver that wants to join our service, we're going to conduct this background check on them. And then we've got to store rider payment information. So if someone wants to take a ride using our service, we've got to have their credit card on file so that after the ride is completed, we can bill them for that ride. Okay, then we're going to price the ride. So based on where the rider wants to go, and maybe how many riders and drivers are out on the road, how long it's going to take to get there, and so on, we're going to offer them some price. Pricing the ride is a process that we do on a regular basis. And then we're going to collect and make payments. So collect payments from the riders and then pay the drivers. There's going to be a process for rating drivers and riders. So after the ride is finished, they can rate each other. And then we can map the route. That's a process. Every time a driver picks up a rider and they get prepared to take off, we're going to map the route for them so they know where to go. And then responding to complaints. So as issues come up, we might have to respond to those. And then matching riders and drivers. So when we have a rider that says, I want to ride to this area, we have to see what drivers are available and which ones we should match with them. Okay, so these are processes at a ride-sharing company. They're going to pretty much be done on a regular basis. Pretty repetitive. Now, what's unique about some of these new companies is that they've automated a lot of these processes. They're done by a system. Whereas old taxi services, many of these are done by a human. And so by automating many of these processes and having the system perform them, they've improved it and made it more efficient, okay, more cost effective. Now, what you might consider doing here for just a minute is stopping the video and brainstorming some processes at your company. Now, when you think about all the processes at your company, you might want to see where they exist in this sphere of influence. Okay? So there's going to be processes that you work with on a daily basis that are in your direct control. You have the ability to change them, and which is great, right? You can improve those processes fairly easily because you own them. It could be, though, that you just have influence over this process or one of these processes. You may not have direct control to change it, but you can maybe recommend changes or try to influence someone else to make a change. And then there's processes which maybe aren't in our direct control or that we don't have much influence over, but are still in our area of concern. Now, the question becomes, how does where the process fits in this sphere of influence impact our process improvement efforts? Obviously, if a process is in our direct control, that's going to be the easiest to change. If it's in our area of influence, it might be a little more difficult. We can make recommendations for making it better. But if it's just in our area of concern, if there's not much we can do about it, it's going to be difficult, right, to change. We focus on the areas that we can control or that we can influence. Okay, so now let's talk about the goals of Lean Six Sigma. There's really two primary goals. The first is to remove waste. That's Lean. And then to reduce variation. That's Six Sigma. To remove waste and reduce variation. And we'll come back to these again and again. So now let's talk about examples of waste and variation in a process. So let's say you go for lunch today and you order a hamburger with fries and a drink. Now, when you ordered the hamburger, you asked for no pickles, but when you get it, guess what? It's got pickles on it. So you've got to take it back up to the counter. They've got to make you another one. They throw out the old burger, and so they've got extra labor and material costs to do that, and time that gets wasted. That's waste in a process. If we don't get it right the first time, if we produce defects, we've got to correct it and pay to correct it. That's waste in a process. Now let's talk about variation. So let's say you order a soda, but it's watered down and disgusting. Now they say that there's supposed to be about 17% syrup in a soda. That's the ideal amount. But when you get your soda, it's more like 8%. It's pretty disgusting. And if this restaurant, sometimes they have 8% syrup in the soda, and other times they have 30%, that'd be a wide amount of variation. What we want to do is minimize that to give customers a more consistent experience. We want to avoid and minimize that variation. We could also see variation in the French fries. So let's say you get your French fries and they're soggy and gross, and they were sitting under the heat lamp for 15 minutes when it should have been less than 10. And maybe in some cases, the fries are really fresh. They're just piping hot out of the cooker. And other times, they've been sitting under the heat lamp for 30 minutes. That's a lot of variation. We want to minimize that and give customers a good experience, a consistent experience all the time. I like this meme. Sometimes you get that diet soda, or you get a soda, you're not sure if it's diet soda or if it's just watered down, right? We don't want customers to have that experience. We want it to be consistent. We want to cut out the waste and the variation. Let's look at some other examples. So let's say you've got a process for developing software. If you produce lots of bugs or defects, waste gets generated. And then you've got to rework the code. That's extra labor costs. And sometimes you have customer cancellations. That's lost revenue. Okay, so it gets expensive if we introduce waste into a process. Or if we're treating patients at a doctor's office. If we have long wait times, it's a problem. We lose patients, it's lost revenue. And we oftentimes have to pay our nurses, doctors, and staff overtime, and that's extra labor costs. Okay, so we want to improve our processes to reduce the variation and to eliminate the waste. So if you take a couple minutes and you think about where do I see waste and variation in the processes around me, there's probably no end to what you could identify. And what our goal here is to just try to eradicate that, eliminate the waste, and reduce the variation that we see. And what's important as we go through this to remember is that no process or product is perfect. That's an important principle. And we should know that there's always room or opportunities for improving our processes. We never should get to a point where we feel comfortable with it. We always want to be making it better. And I like this example. Think about ESPN, if you like sports. What if ESPN hadn't changed, hadn't improved their product or their process? You'd have a website that still looked like this, the way it looked in 2003, as compared to what it looks now in 2019. They realized and recognized that we have to continually keep improving our products and our processes to stay competitive. Now let's talk about the concept of tailoring in Lean Six Sigma. So as we go throughout this course, you're going to learn about lots of tools and techniques, and at times it can be overwhelming. But here's something that's important to remember. Even though you're going to learn lots of tools, not all are going to be required on every process improvement project. You can think about it this way. Sometimes you need a hammer, other times you need a saw. And so, again, you're going to have lots of tools that are going to be shown to you, but you got to think about, okay, for my process, given where I'm at right now, what tool do I need to help me make an improvement? Or what combination of tools? You're probably not going to be using all of the things that we're going to share during the course. Another way to think about this is that you'll need to tailor the teachings to your own project. It's like if you go get a suit or a dress tailored to you, you're going to make sure it fits you perfectly. You're going to tailor these tools so that you pick the tools that are going to work perfectly for your project or your process improvement.